and this is the Age Group Multisport podcast with me, Richard Conway. This is a platform for age group multisport athletes to showcase their journeys. Welcome along to another episode of AMP, and thank you once again for taking your time out to give us a listen. Much appreciated. Hope you're all well and your training's going in the right direction this time of year. On this episode, we've got something a little bit different. Back in early December, David Pearson, who was on our podcast way back in episode 8, messaged me on Instagram saying that he was working on a new platform and it would be coming out early January. He told me it was a collab between himself and another age grouper called Will Senior, and together they were working on a new platform called My Tri Ranking. And it's the first ranking site which analyses your race results and shows where you rank in Britain. And that's right the way from the top pros to your club mates. So David said once it was launched, he would like to come back on the podcast with Will and basically explain how it came about and how it works. Hope you enjoy the conversation, and I hope it gives you an insight of what My Tri Ranking is all about and how the rankings work. And if this is the first time you've heard of it and you've not been on the website, head over there now and see where you stack up. It's mytriranking.com. So let's get straight into it. As I said, David's already been on the podcast, so we've not done an introduction to David. If you want to hear his story, head over to episode 8. And we hear a little bit about Will's background because he's not been on the podcast before. So I hope you enjoy, and we'll see you on the other side. So how are you guys?
Yeah, good. It's been a pretty busy week, but exciting. Yeah, but thank you so much for having us on. I'm excited to chat to you.
Good. Well, obviously David knows the format and he's been on before, but this is going to be a completely different format to what we would normally do. I would like to go into your background a bit, Will, and just let everybody knows who David is because he's been on episode 8. So yeah, just a little bit of an introduction.
Yeah, sure. I'll do the fairly short version, but tell me if it's still too long. So I guess in terms of triathlon, I did my first triathlon not actually that long ago, relative to a lot of the people we have on. I did my first triathlon in 2017. Prior to that, I played quite a bit of football, and as I got a bit older, started getting more injuries. So I thought I need to do something that's a bit less explosive. I'll have a go at this triathlon thing, and pretty quickly just got hooked. Really, I've always tended to stick to sprint and standard distance. I think within my first year, I qualified to do Great Britain age group aquathlon, and that gets you even more hooked. You know, when your GB age group kit turns up. So I went off and did a couple of those aquathlon races, and then qualified for various GB age group triathlons. But through the pandemic, a lot of those got cancelled and moved. But I did go to Madrid last year, which ended up then not being a triathlon. That actually became a duathlon. So although I've qualified many times and to do triathlons in a GB age group kit, I've actually ended up only doing aquathlons and duathlons when triathlon's really the thing I'm most passionate about. So that's kind of my short version. Relatively new, 5 or 6 years in, but just love the sport, and as addicted as everyone seems to be, once you get your first taste, it's hard to stop, isn't it?
Yeah, it seems to be. Everybody seems to say that when they come on. I don't know where you want to start off with this. I mean, I guess the best thing is just to say, how did it all come about? And how did you guys get together to make this wonderful website?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it kind of started during the pandemic, during one of the many lockdowns, when we all had far too much time on our hands, or probably those that didn't have kids did. I know those that had kids were stuck doing homeschooling. So, but I had quite a bit of time on my hands, and I was training a lot, but there weren't really races going on. And I think I started to think still at that point, only a few years into sport, I think I'm fairly good. I know I'm not amazing, but how good am I? how can I quantify how I rank? Because even when you turn up at some of the biggest races, British age group championships or age group world or European championships or whatever it might be, you get a flavour for where you rank, but obviously not everybody's there on that day, not everybody can travel and so on. So I just kind of started messing around with data, trying to pull different races together and start to quantify where I ranked compared to an Alex Yee. I mean, obviously below him, but how far, how a million miles far away, and then where I ranked relative to other kind of age group athletes. And I tinkered around with that for quite a while, and then had other things going on in life and put it a bit on the back burner. And then probably 7 or 8 months ago, I've been following age group news for quite a while, which David runs, and he obviously does his race predictions, and started talking about in more depth about how he was predicting results. And I think there was a mention of algorithms, and suddenly piqued my interest, and I got out the kind of slightly dusty in the cupboard MyTri ranking and thought, wait a minute, this could be the guy to partner with to really get this off the ground and take my quite crude approach to calculating and pulling the data together, and take David's knowledge and we kind of took it to the next level. And so for the last few months, we've been tinkering away, talking hours and hours about data and ranking people, and chats that I'm sure many people would find quite boring, but we seem to enjoy. And then we tidied it up and put it in an okay looking website. Don't tell us if you disagree. And kind of put it out there. And this week, we were hoping there would be a positive response, and there seems to have been a pretty huge and overwhelmingly positive response. So it's just been a really exciting week.
Yeah. And how, David, from your point of view, what did you bring? Obviously, Will had the idea. What did you bring to that? I mean, I'm not sure about your backgrounds, what you work in. So if you want to explain a little bit of how you pulled it all together.
So in my day job, I'm a software consultant at a small company called Fixflow. They've actually been very kind to me in allowing me to use their application development platform to build a lot of the algorithms that underpin this on that platform. But I guess this journey really started for me when, through running Age Group News, I wanted to make better race previews for races that were coming up. When I started writing race previews, it was just my knowledge of athletes in my head. And I thought those were okay, but there's only so much information that I could store in my head. It's only possible to know maybe 100 athletes. If you know a lot of athletes, maybe know 200 athletes. But if you want to track 1,000 athletes, it's just more people than you could possibly know or track in your head. So I then started to realize that to really make good predictions, I needed to have some kind of software solution to do that. And that's where developing models in Fixflow started. Just for me, really. I wasn't sharing them with anyone. I was just using them for my own information to take a start list from a race, and then generate a prediction of how likely it would be that particular individuals would win that race, and then using that as a basis for a race preview. So I was doing that quite happily, but then I got a message from Will, as he said, coming along saying he had this great idea of doing a British triathlon rankings, and he had a really exciting vision for that. And I just saw the pieces of the puzzle stick together in my head, and I thought, yeah, this is where I should take this next. This could be really cool if we combined our skill sets to do this. So that's how I really got involved in this.
In layman's terms, just can you explain then how the system works?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the first thing to start off by saying is triathlon's quite a difficult sport to rank when you think about it. So some sports like pool swimming or track running are really easy to rank because everything is just time. If you could say to somebody, how fast can you swim 100 meters in a 25 meter pool? And they'll give you a number, and you can just rank people based on their 100 meter swimming time. Very easy. Triathlon is not a sport like that. If I said to you, how fast can you do a sprint distance triathlon? And you said back to me, I can do a sprint distance triathlon in 1 hour and 15 minutes. Well, what does that mean? what were the precise distances? How hilly was it? Was it windy? Was it raining? There's just so many variables that a time on its own is pretty meaningless. So we had to come up with something that could handle all of those variables which affect the speed at which somebody will do a triathlon. So the approach that we took essentially goes like this. So in my tri ranking, a score of 1,000 points has a very precise definition. So a score of 1,000 points is a score that would be achieved if you turned up to any race and you performed at the average level of the 2023 GB number 1 during the 2023 season. So what do I mean by that? I'm saying if Alex Yee turned up to a race that you just did, and he competed at the average of his 2023 level, then he would score exactly 1,000 points. Now, Alex Yee's ranking in the system is actually a little bit above 1,000 points because we rank athletes based on the average of their best 2 scores. And by definition, the average of his best 2 scores is better than the average of all of his scores. But if you took his average level during the 2023 season, he would score exactly 1,000 points. And that's important, by the way, because Alex Yee in the future could get even better or he could get worse. We don't know, but it will forever be relative to his level in 2020. So that's the basic explanation of how we're calculating the score. The other question is, well, how do we get to that score? Or how do we get to predicting what time Alex Yee would have done in a race that you just did if he performed at the average of his 2023 level? And the easiest way to explain that is through an example, I would say. So let's imagine Alex Yee, he raced multiple times in 2023. And let's say that Jonathan Brownlee raced him several times in that year. And let's say Jonathan Brownlee was on average about 3% slower than Alex Yee. I don't know the actual figure, but let's just imagine that was true. Then if we looked at races that Jonathan Brownlee did, but which Alex Yee didn't do, then we might say that if Alex Yee had competed in that race, then on average, we might predict that he might have been about 3% faster. So we can use that to provide an estimate of the time that Alex Yee would have done based on the time that Jonathan Brownlee did. However, if we were to base our estimate of the time that Alex Yee would have done just on Jonathan Brownlee, that wouldn't be very robust because Jonathan Brownlee might have had a good day, he might have had a bad day. So what we actually do is we do that calculation for a whole load of people, lots and lots of individuals who have raced Alex Yee multiple times and have a defined difference in ability to Alex Yee. And each of those produces an independent estimate of how fast Alex Yee would have done the race. And then we can use some statistics we basically remove outliers and then we average across the middle 60th percentile. And then that produces a pretty robust estimate of how fast Alex Yee would have done the race if he performed in that race at the average of his 2023 level. So that's the basic explanation of how the rankings work.
Taking me as an example, the 2 races that I put in last year, was Darley Moor and then Venice. And the Darley Moor was, I came 107th, but that was using the score overall. But in Venice, it was using the age group score, which was 9th. One's an overall score and one's like in your age group score. What's the idea behind that? So I think what you're referring to is the position field right. in there. Yeah.
So the position field, we don't actually use position for the rankings.
Okay.
For rankings, it's unimportant. We just put the position in there because it's quite nice for you to look at the result and be able to see where you came. But the thing that to focus on for the rankings is the race score, which is the field on the far right. That's the score is how you did relative to what we would expect Alex Yee to have done if he performed at the average of his 2023 level and had participated in that race. So if you have a score of 800, that means that you would have been 20% slower than we predicted Alex Yee would have been if he performed at the average of his 2023 level. 750 would be 25% slower, 850 would be 15% slower, for example. And then we take the average of your best 2 scores and we use that to calculate your ranking.
Yeah. And I had another question in from a duathlete that I follow on YouTube, and he was saying that he'd got a better score having done one race than one of his age group competitors who'd done 2 or 3 races, and he couldn't quite see the justification in that. But actually, what you've just explained, it's nothing to do with that, is it? It's to do with his score versus Alex Yee's score. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. So the position isn't important. It's only the time that we're concerned with.
Yeah.
And that's very powerful for a few reasons. It allows us to make comparisons between levels of performance in races between individuals, even if they don't compete directly. It allows us to make fair comparisons between age groupers and pros, because age groupers wouldn't be able to enter the races that the pros enter. So it provides a level playing field. And also a nice consequence of the system that we use is it's just as easy to achieve a high score in theory in a local race or an age group qualifier than it is to achieve a score in an international race. So we're saying to people, it doesn't matter if you don't want to spend hundreds of pounds to go and compete abroad. That's not going to make any difference to your ranking. If you go to your local race and you put in a performance that's worthy of a world champion, you will score high. The race you compete in, the prestige of it, is unimportant.
Yeah, just the other thing I'd add there, because I think part of the example you gave also alluded to the fact of doing more or less races. So just to clarify on that point, if somebody only has one race, they still get a score and they will still rank. Once somebody has 2 or more races, we take the average of their best 2. So there is, I guess, in a way, there's a reward for racing more, because you've got more chance of getting better scores, which go into your top 2, and we then use in the rankings. But we're also not kind of discriminating or penalising people who can only do one race a year, people who have other commitments, people financially who can't do it, health, whatever it might be. So we wanted to say, as soon as you've done a race, you can have a score, you can be in the rankings. It's not a case that if you just go and do more and more races, you kind of accumulate a higher total, because then we wouldn't really be working out the quality of the races as such. We'd be looking at the quality, but also kind of who can just go and race the most.
Yeah.
So we thought it was important to have that lower threshold. And once you've done a race, you're in the rankings.
You're looking at your best 2 races, no matter how many races that you've raced in the season. Is it going to be seasonal based, or is it going to be whatever, like from now each year, and it just rolls over and rolls over? How are you going to take it forward?
I was going to say it's 12-month rolling rankings.
Right.
So any performance within the last 12 months will count towards your ranking. Once it becomes more than 12 months old, it stops contributing to your ranking. We do have a year-end rankings, so you can go back and see where you ranked at the end of 2023, and that should just stay static. And just to clarify on that point, it's the average of your best 2 performances in a given discipline. So your best 2 triathlon scores contribute towards your triathlon ranking. Your best 2 duathlon scores contribute to your duathlon ranking. And if you only have 1 score, it's just an average of 1.
Yeah, it's good that you made that clear, actually, because it is on the website. It is distinct, isn't it? Triathlon's one thing, duathlon's another. So where does just thinking about that, where does aquabike and aquathon fit in to that, or doesn't it?
It doesn't yet. I think we the challenge of the volume of data to even get triathlon and duathlon right. Yeah. And I think we've done a fairly good job so far, but there's more we want to do to improve those. We're talking, we've got over 25,000 athletes already ranked, which means we've looked at many, many times that in race results. I think eventually we'd had requests to look at 70.3 and full distance. We've had requests to look at aquathlon. I think in time we would love it if we could rank the entire world at every different, multi-sport. But it's kind of step by step. So that's something I think, we'd love to expand it in the future. But we really want to get triathlon and duathlon in Britain right, kind of trusted. Everyone believe it, everyone understand it. And then, I think we'd love to expand it geographically in terms of the different types of multi-sports, different distances. Absolutely, yeah.
So the next stage then, what is your next stage going to be?
It's a great question. Firstly, I just want to say thank you to everyone for the response. I think we've sat in our I think David likes to call it his data cave, which he sometimes asks if he can just go in his data cave rather than talk to me. We've sat between the two of us talking about this for a long time, and we thought it would resonate. We thought people would find it interesting, but when we pressed go live the other day, there could have been absolutely zero response, or people could have thrown rotten tomatoes at us. So it's actually been lovely that 99% plus has been very positive sentiment. So firstly, it's just a thank you for what's even happened so far. I think as we've launched, we've had some great suggestions. Some of those suggestions on how we could expand it to longer distances. That's probably more for the middle long term. I don't think we'll do that too soon. We've had great suggestions on smaller features that we could add. So a lot of people want to do comparisons within their club. So could we get a filter on there where you can go and filter by your club? So that's something we're thinking about. Probably not in the short term again, but something for the midterm. I think generally the way we're looking at it is in the coming months, as we start to get into more racing, we've got to get good at updating the rankings, making sure it's accurate, really building that trust in the community that, which I think there's a high level of already, but really making sure people understand how the rankings are calculated, why they've got a particular score. And when they do a race, they want to go on there, a few days later and look how their ranking changes. So that's really our biggest focus in the coming months. But then it becomes the sort of common language we all talk in triathlon and duathlon. So right now, I don't know if you've had these conversations with people, Richard, you have sometimes slightly abstract conversations where you're trying to work out if they did a particular race and where they came and how good might they be. And if actually you could just say, well, on my tri ranking, I rank this overall and I rank this for my age group, you've suddenly got a common language, a common currency. So saying in the longer term, who knows? I mean, we've had some wilder but amazing ideas on how could you use this data, and then could you then virtually race those people because how different they are to you, or whatever it might be. So, but I think for now, it's all about just getting this a really great ranking system kind of nailed down.
Anything to add, David?
I think that covers it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, is there anything else that you want to tell people about or discuss while we've got the platform and the opportunity?
Well, I'm interested, Richard, how you, if you don't mind sharing, how you don't need to share your ranking necessarily, but were you pleased with it? Did you think, I thought it'd be higher, I don't trust it? What was your reaction when you? Well,
I looked at it and I just took it, and I've looked at a few of my club mates. I looked at my wife's, and I just took it as it is what it is, isn't it? It's like, because it's new, you've got nothing else to look at it against. I guess it's unique, isn't it? So you just take it for what it is, and it's that score. And I wasn't disappointed. Once I'd read the information on the website of how it all comes about and what you're basing it on, that sort of explained it a little bit more.
I'm just going to add one other thing, which I think is an interesting point, is because the rankings are based on time. What we think with this is it will give people that incentive to keep going and push to the end of the race.
The other thing I was just going to add in terms of, I think where this gets really exciting sounds basic because this is kind of the main concept, but seeing pros in the same ranking with age groupers, kind of understandably, because logistically you have to. We have this divide in the sport where the pros go and do their races and the age groups do their races, and very occasionally there's some sort of bleed between the two. Someone might move up to the pros. So that seems fairly rare, really. I think this starts to show actually those really top age groupers, how far are they off the pros? Are they as close as people might guess? Are they further away? Like, I think there's a really interesting dynamic there with the score comparison, because you can see, as David described earlier, the score equates to essentially what the time difference would have been. And then if you think about how that would help younger athletes, aspiring athletes, seeing over the period of a few years how their score increases, how they're moving up the rankings. If they aspire to be a pro, how close are they to the pros? So I think that's another really interesting part of it, which you just don't get today, because you have, I know there's some series and super series to an extent, but your average person who is maybe not amazing yet but is improving, they probably haven't had that yardstick to understand how far they are off the very best and how much they're progressing. I know with your some of your podcasts where you're following those younger athletes, Richard, and aspiring athletes, that they're going to have a real measure now of how much they're improving over time and how close they're getting to their idols. So I think that's the other really exciting part. Rather than just seeing these people on TV, we can kind of compare. I mean, and know how much more amazing a Beth Potter is than than everyone else. But I think that's really exciting.
Anything else?
I think that's
think
good.
so.
Yeah.
Happy with that? So as long as you guys it's give you some value, that's the main thing.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Appreciate your time and your efforts to grow the sport. I mean, I guess that's what brings us all together in these types of things. It's all just because we all love the sport and we're kind of addicted to it. And as if we don't spend enough time doing the sport, we end up talking about it, looking through the data. I mean, it's kind of funny, right?
And so what have you guys got planned for the season then coming up? Just obviously, David, you're now management.
I was saying to Will, just before I come on this podcast, I've been going through about 550 applications to join the Malaga Facebook group. We have to approve every single one of them individually. So we have to check every single athlete that's qualified and only allow them to join the group if they're qualified. 98% of people who have applied to join the group have qualified. There's like the odd one or two, which is like partners or something like that, and they're not allowed to be in it. Or some random person. But anyway, but back to your question, I'm racing in...
but actually, just before you answer that question,
that
is an interesting point, because that just shows what you guys have got to go through. You know, the background stuff that us as athletes don't see, and that's just a fantastic example of the mind-numbingly boring parts of being a manager and the stuff that you've got to do. Sorry, I digress. Carry on with your story.
Most of it's great fun, and the athletes make it worth it. So I'm managing and hopefully racing in Coimbra. I'm managing the cross triathlon/duathlon and racing the sprint duathlon. I'm also managing the aqua bike in Malaga and hopefully racing the sprint tri there. And I am pretty close to booking my flights to Townsville.
Ooh.
I'm not going to manage in Townsville, but I'm hoping to race the sprint duathlon, and that's going to be my big trip for the year.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. Well, good luck with it all. I'll see you over in Portugal, because I didn't get to qualify, but my wife's qualified, so we're going to go out. So, yeah, we'll see you there.
Awesome. Yeah, and also with Age Group News, I'm planning to go to quite a few of the qualifiers, either to race them or just to report. So I should be around and visible on the circuit this year.
Cool. Good. And Will?
I've got an interesting one. So I'm doing my first marathon this year. I'm doing... I've got a place in London, and my training was going beautifully until yesterday on a long run. I've tweaked my calf, and I don't know whether we're 2 days out or 2 months out at this stage. I'm just trying to nurse that through. And then I qualified for a sprint triathlon Europeans, which I think is in France in September. David will tell me if I'm wrong. So if I can get to the marathon, get through that, then I will spend the summer focusing a bit more back on triathlon, and end of the summer off to France to hopefully finally, having done GB age group aquathlons, duathlons, even when I'm not signed up for them, finally do the triathlon, which I've qualified for so many times and never done the triathlon part. So that's the plan. But the marathon's the main focus right now.
Excellent. Well, good luck with it. It's not nice being injured.
No, it's awful. I've been like a bear with a sore head all day, just moping around. Yeah.
Well, I hope it heals up quick and you get back to training.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Right, well, that's a great place to finish it. If I can help in any other way, just give us a shout.
Cool, great stuff.
All right.
Thank you,
Brilliant.
Richard.
Thanks
nice
so
to
much,
meet
Richard.
you. Take care.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So a big thank you there to David and Will for coming on and clearing up and explaining what My Tri Ranking's all about and how it came about. A real labour of love, and one that we're all going to be able to benefit from. So, yeah, congrats for the launch, and hope it goes from strength to strength. My Tri Ranking also have social media, and they are on Instagram and Facebook. Not sure whether they're on any of the others, but head over there and give them some support. And that's about it for this episode. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you'd like to leave any comments, we're on Instagram at amp_1967. We're on Facebook at ampgb. We're on X at agegroupmultisportpodcast. And you can always drop us an email at agegroupmultisportpodcast@gmail.com. We also have a YouTube channel, and on there are all the podcasts, short videos that we've been making for our Amp Next Gen series. Head over there, subscribe, and again, you can leave comments and encouragement to our next gen athletes. So thank you once again for taking your time out to listen. Much appreciated. And don't forget, stay safe, keep training, and love the process.